Okay, good.
Sure.
Okay, we're recording. For everybody watching tonight, we're joined by Heather Rann. She's a rescue medium from Lost Souls Spiritual Services. And Heather, if you want to let everybody know what you do and where they can find you, it'd be great.
I do readings. I go into people's houses and help them with their issues. If they feel like there's, some activity going on, and they need help with it. As well, on occasion, we do paranormal investigations. We do incorporate some of that with some of the house clearings I do. Some people like to listen to Spirit Box and get, the EVPs and stuff like that, answers to their questions and things like that. People are interested in those things. But for most part, for paranormal investigations, it's sort of just fun stuff that we do, go out and, just play around and have some fun, right?
Yep.
As far as finding us, we do have a website, lostsoulspirits.ca, but I think the most traffic that we get is on the Facebook page, Lost Soul Services, on Facebook.
Okay.
So,
Awesome.
yeah, you can message us there or pop by and say hi.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and you're pretty active in our group too, so you can always catch you there too.
Yeah, laughing at the memes.
See, I like the idea that you do paranormal investigating too, along with what you do. So it's kind of like we've investigated with you now a few times, and we kind of play off each other. Like you can say, I sense this in the room, or I sense this over here. And I like the fact that I can go in with the machines or the mail meter, or take you to an EVP session right on the spot while you're sensing what you're sensing. So I do like the way that we play off each other when we do investigations. But yeah. I guess the number one question that everybody probably wants to know is how do you do what you do? So like if you say you're crossing spirits over from, say, the mass grave behind Walmart in Sydney River, how is it that you do what you do? I'm curious myself too, right?
So that one in particular that you just mentioned is a bit of a different situation, because there's so many spirits there, so many souls that were still hanging around. So that's a little bit different. I'll explain that in a minute. Usually it's a one-on-one type deal. So if I go into a residence and find, a male spirit that crossed over, or that passed and is sort of stuck there, then I will have that conversation with him. Why are you still here? And so I'll have to back up a little bit, I guess. My main ability is clairvoyance. So when spirit talks to me, they show me pictures. I sometimes get words, and they really use my life experiences. So, for example, I have a certain symbol that means the 70s, and they will use pop culture references that I know of to try and get their point across sometimes. So it's a little like playing charades. So It's not always cut and dry like people think it is. I don't really get names a lot. Sometimes they will give me words, very specific words, for a certain malady, for instance. Like they will give me the word pneumonia, so there's no mistaking that, and because of my medical background, I can kind of work with a lot of that kind of thing when they give it to me. Awesome. So when I go into a house, basically I do a walk around and try to hit every location, like closets, basements, attics. A lot of spirits don't want to be around humans, and they will go and hide away. So, those are the places that sometimes you'll find them. And when I do find one, as long as it's cut and dry, if what I'm being shown is something that's more of a creature, then I might kind of take a step back if I haven't encountered it before, and ask my guides kind of what's going on and that type of thing. But for the most part, it's human spirits that are just stuck, right? So it's more like they're the same. You're the same when you die, and you're the same as when you were alive. If you were grumpy when you were alive, then you'll be grumpy when you pass over. If you're nice and easy to get along with, it should normally be the same. So I basically talked to them and asked them what happened. And a lot of times there's a reason. They're still stuck in something that happened to them. So, you know, it's a lot like a counseling session where, you know, just kind of talk to them and let them talk it through, because they felt like they weren't heard, or they felt like nobody knew their real story. So I kind of let them have that conversation. And then most times at the end of that, they're ready to go. And I just create a portal, for like a door basically, for them to kind of go through from this place to the next.
Awesome.
So as far as the mass grave, that one was a little different. When I opened the portal, usually I will see spirit. I can describe what they look like, and I can see them and their clothing, that type of thing. With that happening, there was one or two that I did encounter. Over by that tree, there was a lady over there that I encountered, and with a lot of really chaotic energy. She had a lot of mental issues. And then I also encountered the lady that was giving one of you guys a hard time. But when I opened the portal to try and cross these spirits over, there was so many of them that I didn't see them individually anymore. I saw them all as like white lights. They were just all lined up as far as the eye could see. They were in a lineup, just kind of, and they were just going as fast as they could go through. It was amazing to see, really, because that's never happened to me before. So.
Oh yeah.
So I was just going to ask you that, to describe what you're actually seeing when they're crossing through, right? So are they all white lights, or do you sometimes you actually see the shape of a person or an entity? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's the only time I've actually pictured them as white lights. Just because there were so many, there was just too much to try and focus on individually. Normally I do see them, and as they were when they died, or as they want me to perceive them. Because sometimes they want to show how they were healthy in life, and they don't want to show kind of the way they were at the end of life. So it kind of varies. But I will usually see them, almost always see them, you know, their features, most likely, what I mostly get, I don't focus on face. I usually focus on what they're wearing, you know, how they carry themselves, whether they're kind of looking like they're very old, what their hair color is, what their hairstyle is. Because a lot of times when I'm describing to clients, that's the easiest way to get the point across as to what someone looked like or what era they're from, type thing. So I always see them, you know, as a full figured person, basically going through and walking through this portal. And most times they will have a loved one come for them. I ask that happen, especially in the case of children. I will ask for either a loved one that they know and they feel comfortable with, or I'll ask for an angel to come and help them kind of go through so they're not afraid and that type of thing.
Okay.
So
that was my next. That was my next question. What do you think happens after they cross through the portal? You answered it anyway.
Sorry. I see like this. I see that the spirit kind of go to the portal, and on the other side of the door's open. I see on the other side either their loved one or an angel or something like that, and they're waiting for them and literally kind of help them, guide them.
But do you see anything else on the other side of the portal? Like, is there landmass? Is it just a void? Like, do you see any of that, like, through anything, or no?
I think it probably varies from rescue medium to rescue medium. For myself, I see the tree of life, and I'm guessing that's just personal to me. But that the very first time I did it, that's kind of what I could see on the other side, and which is very symbolic in itself. So, yeah, that's really all I see.
Wow.
As far as landscape goes.
All right. So, what do you think has been an experience that's stuck with you the most? Have you ever been in an investigation that, you know, kind of scared you, stuck with you, you know, anything like that?
I think the things that stick with me are the ones where I get startled or where I'm not expecting to be, you know, running into a spirit. So like, for instance, when we did Dorchester, that was a fun one for us that we just did for fun. Dorchester at nighttime, it was pretty cool. There was a lot that happened. But then the next day we were getting ready to leave and I'm literally using the washroom. And as I go, I can't remember if I think it was I going into the stall, I literally saw a hand come out from the other side and go to grab my leg, and I jumped. It was daytime. I'm done investigating. I wasn't ready for it, right?
Are you sure it was a spirit?
Oh yeah, I was in there alone.
The creepy janitor.
Anyways, and that was actually one of the locations that we had activity in the night before. So I was surprised, but then I kind of went, okay, yeah. Anyways, yeah, it just sort of startled me because we were packing up, we were getting ready to leave. The place is super active. That happened in also something similar, Purcell's Cove case that I did. I was walking the guy's house and I went to the washroom and I turned around to face, he was in the living room and one of my team members was in the living room talking with him. And I turned around to face them and I had the tub in the shower behind me. Anyways, all of a sudden I could feel these arms coming out to grab me from behind the shower curtain. That made me jump too because I wasn't expecting it. So I jumped and turned around. I'm like, okay, not taking my eye off that thing. Anyways, there was a female in the shower who was sticking around. She had committed suicide, and I saw her like black, like she was just all black, like her hair, like everything was, which usually I don't. I usually see in color and I see that type of thing. But yeah, so that one made me jump too.
Wow. I would say, yeah, I'd be more than jumping.
Yeah.
So as a paramedic, do you get bombarded? Like, say you go on a case, of course, there's people that die every day, and you must see a lot of death and a lot of accidents and a lot of everything terrible that I know I could never handle in a million years. So do you get, like, say someone passes away and you're on the scene, do you ever get that person who's, you know, just confused, doesn't know that they're gone yet? Or are they trying to reach out to you in that way that soon or no?
No, not normally. I shut myself down.
Yeah.
Because it's two totally different areas, right? Doing that work and then doing this work. And I wouldn't want anything to get in the way.
No, I didn't think so. Yeah.
It would be too distracting. So I actually, it's almost like putting out a closed sign. So I do that when I'm home. And then also when I'm going to work, it's, you know, do not disturb basically. But that being said, I was caught by surprise twice. Once a couple years ago, and then once probably at least 10 years or more ago, before I realized that I was a medium. So there was the 10 years ago incident, there was an accident, and we had taken over the same truck an hour later after shift change. And we were literally stopped to get a coffee. My partner was out of the truck, and these were we had the old radios, music, the dial would turn, you'd have to turn it, there was no digital at that point. And I was sitting there, and all of a sudden the volume started to go up by itself on the radio, and it got so loud it was deafening. Anyways, so I just in my mind I'm like, this needs to stop. So it stopped, and then the air around me seemed supercharged. It seemed almost like anger. Someone was really angry and frustrated. And then a moment later, the music started to go up again by itself. It continued on up. And so saw my partner walking back, and I didn't know how to explain the whole situation. So I just reached over and shut the whole radio down. I didn't really know what to make of it, besides the fact that that person probably was still with the truck and they were influencing the radio.
Wow.
Well,
the second time was on a DOA, and my partner was the one running the call and was just gathering information, and the RCMP officer was gathering information from family. And I happened to lean over, we needed the medications, and so I leaned over to grab the medications across where the patient was sitting. And as I did, because we're all good Nova Scotians and Canadians, I was apologetic, right? Forgetting that that's that's how I talk is in my mind when I'm talking to spirit. So as I leaned over, I was like, oh, in my mind, I said, sorry. And then I heard him say, oh, don't be sorry. And I jumped back, and I was like, I started looking around. Anybody else hear that? And of course they didn't hear it, right? But it was enough for me to go, oh crap. I opened that door when I said that to communication, right? So then I'm just like no.
Even the ghosts here are polite.
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, those were probably only the two instances. And I'm very mindful that when I'm in human mode, what I kind of think of as, okay, this is my human life and these are the things I need to do, then I kind of shut that down and I don't allow it to kind of come in.
Yeah, I figured I'd ask because when I went on, I always post those stories on the page, and one day I just typed in paranormal experiences by paramedics, and there was an entire, like, I don't know how many posts there is on this site that I found, and it was all first-person accounts of things that happened in the trucks, things that happened at scenes of accidents and all this sort of stuff, right? So I figured I'd ask, and maybe you had a couple experiences too, right? But
yeah.
There's a producer in Toronto that actually emailed me a couple years ago, I think, and they were doing Paranormal 911, and he was looking for stories for my coworkers and things like that. So yeah, there's a lot more than you think there is, I guess, once you start getting into it.
That's actually a pretty good show. There's Haunted Hospitals and Paranormal. Yeah, they're both really good shows. Yeah.
So I've seen Haunted Hospitals, but not the other one. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, you mentioned when you found out you were a medium. How did you find out you were a medium? How does one wake up one day and go, I'm a medium? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm super curious about the whole subject. Yeah, like, do you just wake up one day and all of a sudden you're like, there's 1,000 voices in my head? Like, how did you find out that you could do what you could do? And you said it was only a couple of years ago? Like, this wasn't like a like how many years ago would it have been?
Probably 5 years, 6 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Something like that I figured it out. But then looking back on, my life, I can kind of see signposts. I can kind of see things that, that should have kind of pointed to the fact that I had something going on. I have always been very spiritual and unknowing. I mean, literally, I mowed lawns for my grandparents when I was younger. And so I earned money when I was, 9, 10, 11 years old. And I remember back then, somehow I ordered, because we're not, this isn't Facebook shopping, back then. No. We're talking, 40 years ago. I ordered a deck of tarot cards from somewhere, so I don't know where I got them. And I also got my hands on, I bought a rose quartz pendant crystal back then. So, and then there was always lots of things where I was using my intuition when I was a kid. When we moved, we lived in a couple older homes. And I forgot this. My friend reminded me just recently. She said, don't you remember when I would come visit you and you would talk about the ghost in the house? And there was one in each spot that I lived in, and I knew I could tell her all about them. That's stuff that I forgot. But I guess it probably really became noticeable when we bought this house in 2000. This house was quite active, and unbeknownst to us until we moved in, and we started renovating extensively. The first couple days we were renovating, I saw a shadow person upstairs walk across the hallway, and I was the only person in the house. And I tried to rationalize it. I tried to recreate it. I thought maybe it was the light bulb casting a shadow, and I thought maybe it was Jason, but he was outside. And there, I couldn't recreate it. And there was all kinds of other things that happened here as well. We would hear men's voices mumbling all the time, talking. We could never figure out where it was coming from. My middle child, he would have these nightmares about this monster. And so I decided to ask him. He described a blue monster, but what he described was a male who was blue, and a little girl with him. So I did a lot of digging and stuff. And I did find out that there was a farmer who died out back when his tractor rolled over on him. So asphyxiation. And that we have servants' quarters here, and there's actually a census to indicate that there's a point in time where there were people that were living here that were not of the family. And then the next census, one of them was not here. They weren't here anymore. So I don't know if there was a death associated with that little girl or not, but there was a lot of things that went on here. Noises, unexplained voices. I would hear the kids calling for me and they wouldn't even be home. I'd be halfway up the stairs and go, wait a minute, I'm home alone.
I get that now. That happens to me. I'll hear like my name the odd time, and I'll look at Joanne. I'll say, "What did you want?" She'll say, "I didn't say anything."
Oh my God, so that used to happen all the time.
It doesn't happen to me. Used to be a lot more years ago. Not as much now, but still the odd time, and it'll be as plain as day. I'll hear my name, and I'll say, "What did you say?" And she'll like, "Yeah, you're doing that thing again. No one's saying anything to you." And I'm like, oh, "Okay, whatever." And I'll just kind of blow it off, right? But it happens, a few times a year, and I'll hear different voices too. It's not the same man or the same woman. It could be just whenever. I could be at Walmart, and all of a sudden I'll hear my name as plain as day in my ear, and I'll turn around and look. There's nobody there. So I don't know.
Really
strange. I went to I guess our most famous psychic medium, I guess, in Cape Breton, or one of them, was May Sparks, and I went to her back in the 90s, and she I told her about that, and she said that if I trained up some more, whatever that means, I don't know how you train. That's one of my other questions for you. Would be, she said, if you train up some more, you might be able to open yourself up. But the way she did her reading was she used cards, not tarot cards, a deck of cards.
Mm-hmm.
Just a regular, a deck of cards you pick up at the store. And she'd throw them all down. And she read, and some of the stuff she said to me was pretty incredible. Like, I don't know how, and I mean, you're talking the 90s, there was no internet when I went to see her.
Yeah, right.
So, you mean, she couldn't Google my name and say, oh, what's this guy up to and all this stuff, right? So there was a few things she said, a couple of things that didn't come true. Like she said I was going to be an RCMP officer. I was way too blind for that when I was born. So that wasn't going to happen.
Cool.
But
yeah, I actually, didn't I say that to you before? I had the impression that you're sensitive and that so but anyway, so with the house, things just kept happening, and I'd always had sort of interest in death and paranormal and that kind of thing, like ever since I was young, and horror movies, and just, as much as I could get, I was always watching, reading, whatever. So I did end up getting into a paranormal investigations group, which intensified things for me, because we would go to locations and I'd start to feel physical symptoms, and varied, like they weren't all the same at any location. So I finally started putting two together and realizing that, when we're getting voices on the spirit box or the recorder and I'm feeling physical sensations, that there's a tie there, right? And so I'd start asking questions, did you die with chest pain that I'm feeling? We get a yes on the ghost box. So things like that, where I kind of went, oh, okay, I'm connecting the dots here. And I went to a couple spiritual retreats in Ontario, 2016 and 2014, I believe. And I don't know if you've ever seen the show Rescue Mediums.
Yeah, I watched it a couple times.
Okay. So Jackie Dennison put on these spiritual retreats. They would come, her and her partner would come to Ontario, and I went to a couple of those and started learning and started, taking psychic courses, and, things like that. And I just started learning a little bit about everything. There used to be a group called Angel Hall. They were a very spiritual group in Halifax, and I used to go to their meetings, and they would have speakers all the time, and it was different spiritual things, not the same all the time. And so I learned a lot about like a little bit of everything, to kind of know, I took shamanism, I took Reiki, I took numerology, I did all these things. I took a mediumship beginner's course. I did an advanced level. So I kind of learned a lot about, how energy works in many different forms, and kind of got a feel for what worked for me and what didn't, and what I enjoyed and what I didn't. And it just sort of evolved from there, especially when, I started doing more houses and things like that. Because the frustrating thing for me, being in this house, and the house doesn't have activity now, but it was so active and it was so hard to live in. It was so hard to sleep. It's your safe space. You shouldn't have to be afraid to go to sleep at night. So I was sort of frustrated with the fact that doing investigations was just gathering information and evidence, and it wasn't really helping. So that's when I started to gear more towards learning how to, help the homeowner and help the spirits. Because I feel a kinship for both of them. I mean, they were people I wouldn't want to be stuck here after I'm dead.
No.
So, that kind of became my mandate, to try and help and trying to make things better for everybody. So, yeah.
All right.
So
well,
if you were looking to, to build on what you have, you could start and take some courses. I don't know what they have up there in Cape Breton as far as spiritual courses and things like that, or.
I don't know if they have anything.
No.
Yeah, I'm not. Jason, do you know if they have any courses or stuff like that? I've never seen anything on their page. No one ever shared.
No idea.
Oh, okay.
No.
Yeah. I wasn't sure. No. So have you ever, I know Jason asked you this, but have you ever run into anything like super, super evil? Not just scary, but like something that you couldn't cross over?
I have run into a few different creatures that, I'd never encountered them before. So sort of threw me. And because, I'm really based in human crossovers. There's actually a case that I was working on in Dartmouth, where the lady in question, I mean, the whole house actually was experiencing extreme fatigue. They'd wake up in the morning feeling like they hadn't slept at all. They were seeing doors move by themselves. A variety of things were going on there. But mostly it was focused on the female homeowner in the house, where she was getting quite ill. She'd been in and out of hospital before we showed up. And she was getting the brunt of the attacks, if you will. So, and she would have these horrible nightmares all about death and dying all the time at night. And, she wasn't sleeping. And so she actually ended up in the hospital. And when we showed up, she'd actually just been released. She'd been there for a couple days. And I'd been to that house before, and I'd cleared a bunch of human spirits, and that's all that was there before when I went there was human spirits. That time when I went back, there were more human spirits there as well. In fact, there was one little boy in the basement that was sort of a trickster and kept jumping out at me, but I was calling him on it, so it wasn't really that startling to me. But up in her bedroom, which is where most of the issue was, they said, I went in there to try and figure out what was going on and what was plaguing her in that room in particular. And what I literally saw, and don't laugh,
No,
but I literally turned around. I was standing by the bed. I turned around. I looked back at their door, and what I saw was a Godzilla type creature standing there, not as tall as the door. but like long tail out behind, and like the, you know, the front appendages up in the air type thing. And I hadn't seen anything like that before. And so I had to kind of, you know, my guides did start to try and fill me in a little bit, but I did leave there and do my own research to try and figure out what was going on. So it's like a multi-dimensional creature. And trying to think of what the word was that they gave me. Oh, reptilian was the word that I was given. So I did some research on the reptilians, and them being, there was a lot of literature about them being alien in nature. They're very negative, and they don't like the positivity of our dimension, especially if there's a home that's quite positive, or people in it that have any abilities or that type of thing. Then they want to kind of squelch that, and they need energy, like all entities do. They need energy to survive. So basically, they were taking her energy and really focused on feeding off of her, and that was why she was getting so sick and so weak and that type of thing. Okay. So yeah, that was one where, I mean, you cannot just get rid of a reptilian. You can't just cross them over. It doesn't work that way. So I had a minister come in, and we did a house blessing, and he blessed the people in the house as well. She's doing a lot better. What she also does need, though, and we've talked about this with them, is having some Reiki as well to clear her chakras, because that's where they attach to. So, you know, that needs to still happen. But yeah, that's just one of, I mean, I've seen other little creatures that probably, I don't know, I want to say maybe 2-3 feet high, really dark. I've seen them in a couple different locations, and they're more of stewards of the land. So if you're